The unknowns in biology ranked, the questions that could rewrite life science. Biology is in a strange moment. Scientists can read DNA at industrial scale, track millions of cells one by one, and model proteins with algorithms that feel almost unreal. Yet some of the biggest questions still sit in the dark. The tension is simple. Biology is drowning in data, but still short on explanations. We can measure more than ever, but we still argue about what matters, what drives what, and what counts as a cause instead of a correlation. This piece ranks the unknowns in biology by two things: how much they could change, medicine, agriculture, and daily life, and how close research feels to real answers. The list is not hardest problems only. It is most consequential gaps in understanding. The story turns on whether biology can move from describing life to reliably predicting it. Key points. The top unknowns in biology are not small details. They sit at the center of disease, development, aging, and evolution. Better tools have shifted the frontier from "we can't measure it" to "we can't interpret it." The highest impact unknowns cluster around causality, what drives what, in living systems that constantly adapt. Several unknowns are tightly linked, so progress in one area can unlock others. The same advances that promise cures also raise security and ethics risks, because biology is becoming easier to engineer. The next decade is likely to reward approaches that combine experiments with computation, not one or the other. Background. Biology is not one problem. It is many problems stacked on top of each other. Molecules form networks. Networks create cells. Cells build tissues. Tissues make organs. Organs behave inside bodies that learn, age, and respond to environments. That layered structure is why biology can feel slippery. Living systems are full of feedback loops. They compensate when something breaks. They vary across people. They even vary across cells in the same tissue. In the past, many unknowns were unknown because they were invisible. Now, they are unknown because the system is too complex to explain cleanly. That shift is what makes the following ranking useful. It is a map of where explanation is lagging behind measurement. 1. How life began from non-life. The origin of life is still the biggest open door. Scientists have plausible pathways for how chemistry could become biology, but no single account has one. The hard part is not imagining steps. The hard part is showing a route that is realistic, robust, and repeatable under early Earth-like conditions. This matters because it sets the baseline for what life is. It also shapes the search for life beyond Earth, and the boundaries of what synthetic life might look like. 2. The rules of gene regulation and cell fate. DNA is not a script that reads itself. Cells decide which genes to use, when to use them, and how strongly. That decision-making creates cell identity, neuron, liver cell, immune cell, and so on. We know many of the parts. We still do not have a simple, reliable rulebook that predicts cell fate from first principles. That gap sits behind birth defects, cancer, failed drug responses, and the slow progress of tissue regeneration. 3. Consciousness and the biology of subjective experience. Brains process information. That is clear. The unknown is why some processing is felt from the inside. Consciousness is not just intelligence. It is experience, pain, color, time, self. This is ranked high because it touches neurology, anesthesia, psychiatric illness, and moral questions about animals and machines. Progress is real in mapping circuits and correlates, but the core explanatory leap remains unsettled. 4. Aging. What actually drives it, and what can be safely changed. Aging looks like a single phenomenon, but it may be many processes: DNA damage, protein, misfolding, immune decline, cellular senescence, mitochondrial changes, and more. The unknown is which processes are drivers versus passengers. If you want real interventions, that distinction matters. Otherwise, you risk treating markers that look important but do not move. Outcomes, or worse, you increase cancer risk while chasing longevity. 5. The immune system's hidden logic. The immune system is a master of pattern recognition, memory, and restraint. It must attack threats, without attacking the self. It must tolerate helpful microbes while remaining ready to kill. We understand key mechanisms. The unknown is the deeper logic, why one person's immune system overreacts, another's underreacts, and why the same infection triggers long-term illness in some but not others. This sits behind autoimmunity, allergy, transplant rejection, and parts of cancer biology. 6. The microbiome's causal role in health and disease. Microbes in and on the body influence digestion, immunity, metabolism, and possibly mood. The unknown is causality. Many microbiome links are real correlations, but turning them into reliable treatments is hard because ecosystems are context-dependent. This ranks slightly lower, not because it is unimportant, but because the field is littered with confounding factors. The next step is moving from associations to mechanisms that hold up across diets, geographies, and genetics. 7. Predicting evolution in real time. Evolution is not just history. Pathogens evolve within outbreaks. Tumors evolve within bodies. Pests evolve around pesticides. The unknown is how predictable adaptation is when environments shift fast. If biology learns to forecast evolution better, it changes vaccine design, antibiotic strategy, and cancer treatment planning. It also changes conservation, because climate pressures are selecting winners and losers right now. Analysis. Political and geopolitical dimensions. As biology becomes more engineerable, it becomes more strategic. Countries care about biotech supply chains, drug manufacturing, and genomic data. They also care about biosecurity, because dual-use research is real. The same tools that build vaccines can be misused. Regulation is a moving target. Too little regulation invites harm and erodes trust. Too much can freeze innovation and push risky work into opaque spaces. Expect growing pressure around data sovereignty, lab standards, and what counts as acceptable gain-of-function work. Economic and market impact. The unknowns in biology are not academic curiosities. They are bottlenecks that set the pace of entire industries. If aging mechanisms become clearer, longevity and chronic disease markets could shift from managing decline to delaying it. If gene regulation becomes predictable, regenerative medicine and cell therapies could become more reliable and cheaper to scale. If immune logic becomes clearer, autoimmune care could move from broad suppression to targeted reset. The risk is hype cycles. Biology rewards patience. Markets often reward stories. The biggest value will likely go to groups that can prove causality, not just publish correlations. Social and cultural fallout. When biology advances, people do not just ask, "Can we?" They ask who gets it and who decides. Better prediction of disease risk can improve prevention. It can also create fear, stigma, and new forms of discrimination if privacy and consent are weak. Longevity advances could widen inequality if access is limited. Brain science raises ethical questions about autonomy, responsibility, and what counts as a person. Public trust will be a deciding factor. The science can be brilliant and still fail socially if the rollout feels extractive, opaque, or unsafe. Technological and security implications. AI is changing biology's workflow. It can spot patterns across huge datasets, propose hypotheses, and accelerate design. Automation can run experiments faster than humans can plan them. That is why the frontier feels closer. But it also increases the risk surface. If modeling and synthesis tools get easier to use, misuse becomes less dependent on elite labs. Security will be less about guarding secrets and more about building resilient systems, screening, monitoring, norms, and rapid response capacity. What most coverage misses. A lot of unknowns in biology coverage focuses on dramatic mysteries, like consciousness or the origin of life. The quieter truth is that progress often hinges on measurement standards and shared definitions. Biology suffers when different labs measure slightly different things and call them the same name. It also suffers from publication incentives that reward novelty over replication. The result is a fog of findings that are individually interesting but collectively hard to build on. The second overlooked factor is context. A mechanism can be true in one tissue, at one age, under one diet, and fail elsewhere. The next era of biology may be less about one universal answer and more about mapping where an answer holds. Why this matters. The people most affected are patients with chronic disease, families facing rare genetic conditions, and health systems strained by aging populations. Farmers and food supply chains are also affected because biology sets the ceiling on crop resilience and animal health. In the short term, the biggest impacts will come from better diagnostics, smarter trial design, and more personalized treatment matching. In the long term, the stakes are larger: how long people stay healthy, how outbreaks are controlled, and how safely biological engineering is governed. What to watch next is less about one headline and more about signals, therapies that keep working in larger trials, models that predict outcomes across populations, and tools that move from lab demonstration to routine clinical use. Real-world impact. A hospital clinician in California sees patients cycling through broad immunosuppressants for autoimmune disease. If immune logic becomes more legible, treatment could shift from lifelong suppression to shorter, targeted immune retraining, reducing infections and side effects. A small biotech founder in Massachusetts is trying to build a cell therapy. Today, variability between batches is a constant threat. Better rules for gene regulation and cell fate could turn fragile bespoke products into reliable manufacturing. A public health official in Lagos is managing an outbreak where pathogen evolution matters week to week. Better evolutionary forecasting could help decide when to switch strategies, not after resistance spreads. A farm manager in Brazil faces heat stress and shifting pests. Predictable evolutionary and microbiome insights could reshape crop choices and soil strategies, stabilizing yields in tougher climates. Conclusion. Ranking the unknowns in biology is really about ranking leverage points. The biggest gaps are not missing facts. They are missing rules, what causes what, and under which conditions. The fork in the road is whether biology becomes predictably engineerable, or remains a discipline of brilliant descriptions with uneven control. That choice is shaped by incentives, safety culture, and the willingness to reward slow, rigorous causality work over fast, flashy correlations. The clearest signs of where the story is breaking will be practical, treatments that generalize beyond narrow cohorts, models that predict outcomes before experiments are run, and regulatory systems that speed safe advances while shrinking the space for dangerous misuse.